Daniel Freitag, there he is.
Hi. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, finally. Yeah, Freitag. I think you kind of know the story. That's why I go a little bit further back. You can see here a picture of myself, the early days, 1972, together with my brother and companion, Marcus. And if you look closely, then you can recognize a few aspects which we stick to ever since then. First of all, there's two of us, the smallest possible team. Secondly, you can recognize that this car has two steering wheels. Still, the company is 50-50, shared between me and my brother. And the car is electric, and it goes in cycles. Cycles and circular concepts are the mantra of Freitag, and it will also accompany us through this presentation. We think in cycles, we act in cycles, and yes, we cycle. Sometimes cycles can become a stunt. And I will talk about cycles, but I decided not to talk about bags. I will not talk about trucks. I will not talk about truck tarpaulins, which our bags are made of. I will not talk about the individuality. I will not talk about the functionality and durability of our products. I will not talk about our stores, the flagship store in Zurich, which is built from 19 freight containers. I also will not talk about pants. I will not talk about fabric, our 100% compostable, European-grown fabrics, which our clothing are made of. I will not talk about the fabric styles, which, in my opinion, look good, feel good, and are good to the environment. I also will not talk about our closed biological cycle, where our fabric or pants becomes the nutrition for the next fiber, for the next pant, and where the only object which is not biodegradable is the button. You can screw it off, you can reuse it over and over again, and this button will for sure survive the pant, and maybe even survive you. And yes, mankind didn't know about screwable buttons until we invented them. So, of course, I could be here and celebrate our not so unsuccessful story, but I was invited to a conference called What Design Can Do. And so I consider myself or my brother that we are designers, and so I was thinking, okay, how are designers doing it? And maybe to share some thoughts about that with you. Before I do that, I want to start with two short stories from the past. One is about more than 10 years ago, and we have been working on our corporate design. And for the first time in the history of Freitag, we decided to consult an agency, a design agency, a corporate design agency. The agency kind of nearby threw us out of their office and it's like, okay, we can't help you. We use your example as a good example for a consistent corporate identity. Are you sure we can help you? And so it was, nevertheless, we started working, not to design our corporate identity, but to kind of figure out who we are. So we developed our kind of brand matrix. We boiled it down to 6 words. We considered that Freitag offers should be urban, they should be recontextualized, and they should be a functional design. If Freitag would be a person, then this person would be honest, it would be slightly fucked up. In the meanwhile, I prefer the Japanese term wabi-sabi, which translates into the beauty of imperfection, and we wanted to be intelligent. We didn't choose sustainability or sustainable as a word, because we just had the feeling that circular solutions and sustainability is just acting intelligent. So we try hard to be intelligent. The second story is just a very short private movie. Here you can see my daughter, and it's her first meter driving a bicycle by her own. I think it's an exciting moment for parents. but try to imagine how Rosa feels that very moment. This moment of freedom, of independence, and this moment of everything is possible. Rosa, to me, is a living example of an intelligent system in action. And every intelligent system needs to have three things. First, there needs to be a high density of information, of network density, which means there must be open information, there must be information exchange, transparency, and I can tell you hierarchy is not helping for connected companies. Second, you need excitement. If there is no energy impulse, there is no intelligence. So I think sometimes it even can be disturbance. So this crazy idea that takes you out of the comfort zone. And third, you need evaluation. Because it's not just about decisions, but it's in self-organized organization, it's about taking advantage of the collective intelligence. So if you manage in an intelligent system to handle internal contradictions, then you can solve today's challenges. And I think to do this, you need different point of views. And I think therefore, create an environment of diversity. At Freitag, we are quite used to diversity. We deal with uniqueness. Every single product of Freitag is one of a kind. But I'm talking about diversity in teams. If you want to have really a diverse team where kind of this sort of information exchange will happening, you need three types of people. If you have all the same type, then I think this leads to kind of more of the same, or also could say exponentially stupidity. But I think you need in every team the broker type of guy or person. It could be the person who knows the person who knows. But you also need the owners, the person with a deep know-how of facts, and you need the creators. I think this is the person with the inconvenient idea, which is disturbing the routine. And the question now for creative companies is, how can you connect these different kinds of people? And I think that's what we try, and I want to use the left minutes to show you some of the tools that Freitag is using. Of course, Simon Sinek told us, start with why, and I can tell you we invest quite a lot in our why. As a company, we try to provide circular solutions for urban people on the move. As a brand, we want to connect committed people and good design to create the bright green future. We created a Manifesto. It was an invitation from the Design Museum in Lausanne. And they gave us a carte blanche. We could do whatever you want. And we decided not doing an Ausstellung, but an Einstellung. Not an exhibition, but an inhibition about our inner values and mindset. Actually, it was a project where we collected old, worn-out Freitag bags, we cut them open, and patchworked them together again to a truck. With this truck, actually, the other two guys are two artists we joined together, the Ricklin brothers. And then we actually went all over Switzerland and confronted people with circular ideas and wanted to figure out what they think about it. So we ended up again, then cut them apart and made new products out of that. But as a real result, we ended up with our own manifesto. We called it the Cyclist Manifest. There's just 7 points, and I think it's work in progress. And if you have some good ideas, please tell me afterwards. So we should keep stuff in closed cycles. We only own objects that last. We repair. We believe in systems designed for compatibility. For example, Lego bricks from the 70s are compatible with today's stones. We believe that we prefer access over ownership. It's the whole sharing economy. We are ready to pay for results, not resources. We want to have clean clothes. Or do you really want to own a washing machine? We lose speed to win time, so sometimes you need to slow down to find the time you're missing, and happiness is cyclical. This is quite universal principle, but they help us to kind of guide us through the operative business time. We also have, for the corporate design now, a platform. It's called the Brandomizer, and here we have a platform to inspire our internal teams, but also to work with creative professionals, that they can kind of align with our principles. I think this is a good way to inspire, because we don't want to have this brand book where everything is set. We just want to have a few rules and inspire, and then again work with creative professionals which can kind of work from that point on. But how do we organize ourselves to make that happen? We kind of went to a journey from alpha to beta to hola. About 4 years ago, our org chart looked quite conventional. A CEO on top, and it felt a little bit to me like this. So we actually went and burned this org chart and came up with something new. And it was like a city map. Every house represents a team, an independent team, like in a city. Loosely connected through common shared values, but every house is sort of independent. It worked quite well, but it felt a little bit like this. So it worked, but sort of chaotic. And that's why we are organized now like this. It's called Holacracy, and we are organized in circles. I think it's a fantastic system. It's distributed hierarchy, not delegated. It's a hierarchy of competence. You work with roles. A person is separated from their roles. You can have many roles. The roles are organized in circles. You separate as well working on the job and working in the job. So we have every second week, we have governance meeting where we work on the job and how we are organized. And every second week we kind of organize the work in the roles. We also have an kind of fluid planning system. So we have, we call it 3-semester planning. And I always say, like, people should draw, because if you can't draw your project on a Post-it, it's probably not worth to invest it. We try to identify the projects which have the highest impact and the good feasibility. So that's the sweet spot where you want to be. But we also want to add the layer of lust. If you burn for something, it's probably more reasonable that you can achieve your goal. And it's all taken decisions in a sense of consent. It's not about consensus. I think consent is the absence of disagreement, and that's how we want to work in our company. We have little details like those bolts, so you can have all over this kind of drawing boards, and we have a connection between production and creatives, between finance and marketing. And I think architecture is the embodiment of an organization. Sometimes you need time and space. So we have this carpenter workshop where you just can go and have some off-space meetings. Or we have a format, we call it Not My Idea, where you can, we invite designers, and they're not talking about their achievements, but they're talking about big ideas they think are important. There's not much preparation, it's just napkin drawings. That's the way how we communicate there. Sometimes you need space in time. That's how our sprint planning takes place with Lego bricks. Every Lego brick is half a day of work. And so there's even one mode which we call intuition design. That's where people decide their own what kind of projects they want to work with. We had great projects coming out of this kind of design mode. We had this almost white collection, the true blue collection. We had the Holy collection, and we also had our Kickstarter product, an inflatable travel bag with wheels, which actually there was not breathing around, but it was a designer who decided to work on his very own idea. Yeah, these are just a few tools we have. I think that's it for now, but wait, there's one thing I want to add. There's this one thing, it's not a tool, I think it's a mentality, and it's called trust. I think in good creators we trust. And I think good creators, they need trust, not scripts. And an example for that, for example, was our Tarte Blanche project. Animation artists from all over the world, they got no briefing, they just had a platform, and we asked them to tell a story which starts with a truck and ends with a bag. I think storytelling is fantastic. I think it sets hormones free, which are probably, I would call it the angel cocktail. It's dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin. And I think with this cocktail in our veins, vessels, we can be open-minded, we can be aware. And I think sadly in our today's business environments, too often we have situations where we provoke the devil's cocktail. It's about adrenaline and cortisol. And I think this is then when you try to dominate and not cooperate. And in that sense, I would say, like, let's design corporations that can live in the age of consent. And I think this is the way we should start to work together. In that sense, I would say, like, keep on trucking, or in this organization, I would say, like, keep on creating.
So truly inspiring talk, Daniel, and particularly because you were telling us something about designing the business and that impact that you've had. I like the way that you also left behind the amazing design and the whole the initial philosophy as well, to tell us how you've done it. Can I ask you about you, and you started with you and your brother. So actually, what is your role and your brother's role today? How would you describe that role that you play then personally? Because you obviously are trying to create an environment where a lot of ideas thrive and a system works. So what's your role?
I have different role right now here. I'm in the role of the apostle, which means representing the brand. That's one of the roles I have. I have a creative direction role, but we have 4 creative directors. It's sort of a board of directors, and it's an exchange, again, teamwork. I have a role which is called lead link. But this is a very minor role. It's not, you can't compare it with a CEO. I'm just assigning the people from the next circle. So I'm basically give trust to a team. That's my job as lead link. And also...
your brother? Oh, sorry, I interrupted.
Because I have a whole bunch of roles, so, but no, it's good. I'll leave it with these 3.
Well, I mean, one of the things I was interested in was, in a way, how you apply your philosophy. You talked about the brand, which obviously influences what you do and how you do it. But I presume that also must have an implication on how you recruit people and how that, how you manage talent in your business. So how does that relate? How do the values and your manifesto and this system, how does that relate to how you recruit?
Well, I think the recruiting is driven by the teams, which then the people I work with. So it's really important that in a very early stage, the peers are actually deciding if they want to work with that team member. Obviously, there is this lead link from the circle, which has at the end to sign the agreement. But I think it's also a team decision to select who's joining the team. I think that obviously I think the brand fit or the culture fit is more important than the expertise. Of course, you want to have somebody understanding what they are doing, but I think that's something you can learn. And I think in nowadays environment, I'm not sure how long this knowledge is valid. So actually, I think to have a team which fits to the culture and especially having people which are willing to learn, I think this is probably what we need.
And you've created something with amazing value and a value system based around the circular economy. It started with the upcycling. You've gone beyond upcycling because actually now with your hemp production and so forth, actually you are into a different sphere of apparel. So what could Freitag be? Do you have is there a vision beyond that then?
Well, I think I'm not quite sure if it's only up to me, to decide that. I think the values we have, I think they could apply to many fields and many things. But I think this is then the merchandise of our mindset. And so I think the mindset will never change. The merchandise to prove what we're thinking, this can change, and I'm open to what it is.
Fantastic. Well, listen, what an amazingly inspiring talk. Thank you very, very much.